I'm very glad to moderate this session, which kicks off our TRIMA 2023. The theme for TRIMA 2023, I think, is now firmly etched in all your minds. I don't think I need to repeat it. Trivandrum 5.0, Prosperity Beyond Profit. As already discussed in the inaugural session, the inspiration for this theme was actually Society 5.0, which is the long-term vision of the government of Japan. I believe they've been working on it for the last 7 to 8 years now. And there is a very good document which I would recommend for anybody interested in the subject. We believe that there are some similarities between Japan and Kerala, which is why we picked this topic. So it was not by accident. Apart from cultural affinities, of which there are plenty, including both Kerala and Japan having an affinity for the martial arts and for the theatre, the similarities between Kathakali and Kabuki, for example. There are other very interesting affinities. One is, of course, the fact that while Japan has a much higher standard of living, the per capita GDP is significantly higher than Kerala, but there is no poverty. And in that sense, if you look at the HDI, if you look at the social indicators, I think both societies would be somewhat similar. Both Japan and Kerala have a very high literacy rate. We both boast of excellent healthcare systems. Japan has the society which is aging the fastest in the world. Kerala has the fastest aging society in India. So we are double the rate of the rest of India, but nowhere near that of Japan. And I think the main appeal of Society 5.0 is the focus on people. That products and services must be designed to serve people rather than the other way around. When you see some of the products that are currently available in the market, one wonders, who is serving who. So it is in this context that we need to look at a key driver of prosperity, which is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, I think, is by and large accepted globally as one of the most important factors that drives any society's development. You take any advanced and developed economy and you will find that it is throbbing with entrepreneurship. And innovation. What is innovation? So freely, translating from Peter Drucker, innovation is actually that activity that defines entrepreneurship. It is what entrepreneurs actually do. They either come up with a completely new product or service, they solve a problem in a very unusual way. And we have some very interesting examples among our panelists. We have a very varied and interesting set of speakers who have rich experience in different fields, which range from social enterprises. We have software, cyber security, solar electric boats. And our panelists today, I'm very happy to introduce Mr. Ajay Pitre, who is the managing partner, Pitre Business Ventures Private Limited. He is a veteran of the medical device industry, built up one of India's leading medical device companies, was acquired by a large multinational. He continues to be very heavily involved in the medical device industry. He's an advisor to TIMED, which is the business incubator of Sri Chitra, and he is very, very actively engaged. And we hope in the Kerala Medical Technology Consortium, which I currently lead in the government of Kerala, to have the benefit of his advice. Mr. Sandit Tandasheri is the CEO of Navalt Solar and Electric Boats. He is, I think, no stranger to anybody who follows the news. And if you've just read the newspaper or seen something, on the internet as recently as yesterday, you would find that he is in the habit of getting awards nationally and internationally. This was an international award. We'll hear a little more about it during our discussion. Ms. Suja Chandi is Senior VP and MD of Zafin India, no stranger to any of us and definitely not to TMA. She was earlier the CEO of Nissan Digital right here in Trivandrum. And currently she's heading a fintech company. So I think we'll get a very interesting insight into the software and tech, what is currently termed as technology from that world. And last but not least, we have Lakshmi Mini, who among other things is the co-founder and CEO of Global Huddle. She's also an expert in cybersecurity. She wears many hats. And I'll right now take you through the format of our panel discussion, which is we will start with a keynote address by Mr. Ajay Pitre on the subject of innovation and entrepreneurship. This will be followed by the panel discussion, during which I will put questions to each of the panelists and elicit their responses. We will finally have a Q&A session, which is open to the audience, and summing up. So if that is okay with the audience, I think we will get on with the business. So let me invite Ajay Pitre to deliver the keynote.
So friends, at the outset, let me tell you, when Padma Kumar called me and said, would you come and speak here, and told me about the Trivandrum Management Association and your programs, I said, are you sure you want me here? I thought I would be a misfit, considering the pedigree of those who are part of this program and the kind of achievements all of you have. And he said, no, even then I want you here. So that's where I recollected one of the first lessons that I learned in my life when it came to entrepreneurship. And that is, even the best make mistakes. But I accepted his invitation because over time, you're friends with, so I'm friends with Padma Kumar, a very long association with Mr. Balgopal. And when you create friendships like that, it's very difficult to say no. Besides, if you are married and with a family where children have grown up for as long as I am, you can't miss the golden opportunity where somebody says, please come and speak, there are people who are going to listen. So that's why I'm here. And I'm finding it a little difficult to grapple with what exactly should be my approach towards this talk, because I see seasoned senior people from whom I should be learning. I see some early stage companies, maybe entrepreneurs who are around. So what should be the approach and what is the insight that I can give? So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you my experiences and relate them to what we need to look at when we talk of entrepreneurship and innovation. And I'm going to break it into three parts. One is entrepreneurship, the other is innovation, and the third, most importantly, is the theme. And I think I heard some very inspiring words with respect to the theme, both from the keynote, which was very illuminating, as well as all the other speakers and the governor himself, is where Google said that it is the activity of setting up a business, taking on financial risk in hope of profit. So when you hear a sentence like this, you relate to some keywords. And when I look at my early stage of our business, the key word that I looked for or struck me and stood out was hope. But when you talk of entrepreneurship, we must understand that it is meant for profit. It is an economic opportunity that you identify. And that economic opportunity has been identified whereby somebody is going to pay you for what you offer and pay you such that after incurring all the cost to be able to deliver, you are left with something which will pay for the capital that is deployed. And I don't think there is a choice here. I just don't think there is a choice, because then we are not talking of an entrepreneurship or an enterprise that you want to build. When somebody goes down the entrepreneurship route, there are many different places, and you would have read books and you would have read articles and talked about what are the characteristics of a person that makes him an entrepreneur. What is it that you need to be to become an entrepreneur? So you need to be passionate, you need to be motivated, you need to have a vision, you need to have the ability to take risk, you need to have creativity, you need to be a learner. For me, above all, you need to have courage. You need to have courage, and you need to have courage to take responsibility. The one thing as an entrepreneur you can't delegate is your responsibility. You are going to be the leader. You are going to be at the top of a pyramid, and everything within that pyramid is your responsibility. There is no place to say that that fellow did wrong, this fellow did wrong, I had a problem with my employee, I had a problem with my supplier. No, they're all yours. And if something goes wrong, it is you. We are here in a hotel. Do you meet the owner when you come and stay here or interact here or we come here for a program? No. You meet the last person in the rank, and he gives you the experience which determines whether you come back to this hotel or you don't come back to this hotel. But the owner, the entrepreneur, or the one who's at the top of the pyramid, has to make sure that if his business has to deliver profit, his customer has to be happy and has to pay a price that will pay for all your costs. So courage to accept this responsibility and to accept the fact that it is my responsibility and nobody else's, and I can't pass on the blame to anybody, is very, very clear. What else? What are you grappling with? It's a balancing act. You have three key stakeholders. You have many more, but I'm just talking of the three key stakeholders. Those three key stakeholders, foremost is customer, then it is employees, and then it is shareholders. In a way, you would imagine that they are fighting to divide the pie between themselves. And if you give a larger piece of the pie to somebody, the likelihood is somebody else is going to be shortchanged. If you pay well, you're likely to reduce a profit. If you give a customer more than what you have promised, it may cost you more. If you kind of cut corners, you may get a greater profit which you will deliver to the shareholder, but the customer will be unhappy. Now, what seems to be competing with each other for the pie, you have to understand, is not a stagnant pie. It is a spiral. And if you have a happy customer or a delighted customer, or give him something that he can't get anywhere else, he is willing to recognize its value, pay you more, which then helps you to invest into various things. It helps you to pay well, or to share the gain with your employees, which then makes them motivated to do many more things, and thereby it starts going upward, and at the end of it, the shareholders are happy. Now, this balancing act is a tough one. And while playing this act, you come across many issues, and a lot of them have to do with what are the decisions that work in the short term, what are the decisions that work in the long term. Should I do this now because it may make sense now, but tomorrow we may pay for it, etc., etc. These are day-to-day challenges that you see. And I think there is no choice but to create a long-term focus. And in this context, I'm going to talk about the new age situation that is happening. And everyone's talking of valuations, funding, etc., etc. And it's a valuation game, and people come to me and say, this is what my business is, this is its value, and the value in Series B and Series C will be 3 times and 5 times and etc. So that's the kind of gain you are going to make. My question is, what is the business going to do? This whole valuation, etc., is giving a very wrong picture. There are 2 wrong pictures that come out of this. One is, the performance of the business has no relevance to its value. That's the first wrong picture. And the second wrong picture is a multiplication in a short period of time. Because today we are losing patience with the way in which our lifestyle is going. We want instant gratification. We want instant result. If I want to know something now, I want to pull out my phone, type in, and I know what it is. Now, of course, with ChatGPT, you can even get this lecture done. But unfortunately, that was not useful for me. So this is the way we look at it, and that is where I think it should be very, very clear that the focus has to be long-term. I'm not saying you can't multiply your value and you can't sell your shares or buy more shares. I'm not saying that at all. Always remember, the entity and the enterprise is going to outlive everybody. Today you will have a set of people who are working in that company. Tomorrow it will be another. Somebody will retire, somebody will leave. And that can happen with the owner too. But the company is going to be permanent. You can't build a company for valuation and exit. You can only, and you should only build a company for being successful for all time to come. Because that is what will be valued by somebody who wants to come in as a shareholder at some point in time. What is he going to see? He's going to see how long will it sustain, how long will it live, and how long will it continue giving good results. So building a company to create a valuation is one of the most inappropriate thoughts that anyone can have, and that has to be banished as soon as possible. You build a company for all time to come, and build a company that will not have the chance of sinking and will only go up. You will have a line of people who will come to invest, and you could well get a very good valuation and exit. But that company has to be for all time to come. You may or may not be in the journey. I'm mindful of time, and so I'm going to shift to the second part of what I was talking about, which is innovation. And have I finished 10 minutes, Padma, or 15? I have 5 more minutes or 10 more minutes? Okay. So let's talk of innovation. And I'm going to tie all these things. The third component, like I said, is the theme, and I'm going to tie it in. So what is innovation? Innovation, and let me try and see whether I have a definition for that. So one of the things that I saw was, can be a new idea, product, service that creates value for which customers are willing to pay. When you create value, that is a value proposition that seems or should become attractive. But when you start looking at innovation, it is unlikely that you will start with or should start with whether or not this will be a commercial success. So that's why innovation is a little different. Everything gets tied in, but it's a little different. There has to be some stage where you reach, where you think this innovation makes sense and is possible. and then be able to see whether that can fit into your commercial goals. But we come from a hangover of an economy that didn't have most things available in this country. And we look at import substitution, and especially in the medtech space, I have seen it very often, and Bala Padma Kumar will confirm to me. There is an enormous pride in developing a product which is basically an import substitute. Is that innovation? That's not innovation. That is addressing a need. It's not innovation. Innovation is about improving on the state of art. Whatever is being done today, can I change it and can I improve it? And for us now, the world has become small, we have become global. I was just talking on another subject with Padma Kumar, and I said, there will not be a single country in the world where you have Indian expatriates which does not have somebody from Kerala amongst the Indian expatriates. So you have access to everything. Thereby, what we have to aim for is doing better or doing things which have not been thought of anywhere in the world. We are not here to try and create import substitutes because the foreign product is expensive or the foreign product is not available. That is a need, and that can be fulfilled. All that I'm saying is it's not an innovation. It's an economic opportunity, and it is for a period of time. So I think today innovation has to aim at being able to better anything that is happening in the world, not just about what we are doing here. The improvement is not just about doing it better, it could also be about making it safer, making it easier, making it more convenient. It could be a good, it could be a service, it could be any of these things. One of the things that you have to remember is the more innovative it is, the more difficult it is to find a market. Because you're most likely aiming at changing habit, and habits die hard. So you have to be mindful of that. And when I say you have to be mindful of that, why am I talking about these things? Because I don't like to see frustration being set into people who are extremely motivated, committed, and are very capable. And frustration is when result doesn't match expectation. So if you over-expect either speed or quantum, you're likely to feel you fell short. But the problem was you didn't fall short, you did very well, you just over-expected. And that's the reason why I wanted to share this. Now, most importantly, let's come to the theme. We've spoken of entrepreneurship, we've spoken of innovation. Now here are extremely eminent gentlemen and ladies who are asking me to do social good. Is it necessary? Absolutely. Are they convincing? More than convincing. And here is a man who up till now spoke about profit being a core motive, spoke about that being the very lifeblood of the business. How do I try and marry all these things? And I am also going to read one more definition, which is the definition of what is called a social entrepreneur, which is a terminology, at least I think, is relatively recent. And what is a social entrepreneur? A social entrepreneur is one who starts a business for the greater social good and not just pursuit of profit. The one simple thing that I know is when you decide your priorities, and if you say something is priority 1 and something is priority 2, then I say that I am willing to sacrifice priority 2 for priority 1, and social entrepreneurship, the priority 1 is social good, not profit. This is what I understand from this. No problem being that, and you should be that, but you should be clear that's what you're being. Don't become an entrepreneur for profit and imagine that you want to play a role of a social entrepreneur. But every entrepreneur can contribute to society by all the ways that we have learnt of. Ensuring that we meet regulations, ensuring that we don't do anything which is polluting. Even if you have a pollutant, ensuring that it is treated correctly. Treating employees well, creation of employment, which is ultimately going to reduce the divide, the economic divide, and democratize many other things. So all of these are possible. And if I am running not what I call a social entrepreneurship, but a business for profit, I will run a business for profit. I did that. I have many examples which I'm not going to give now. I could have a separate entity which I have doing activities which are completely social and not for profit. I don't mix the two. Contributions can come from here. Money can be allocated when it's made as a rule, and you can build that culture. So I think this is possible. It doesn't compete with each other, but this is my few insights on the subject that I was asked to speak of. And I wish you the very best, and I'm sure all of you would, who are desirous of being entrepreneurs, do well, because you come from a state which has the capability, ability, and you would do it in a more conscious manner. Like Leo Burnett said, when you reach for the stars, you might not quite get there, but you're not going to come up with a handful of mud either. So all the very best, and thank you once again for being a patient listener.
Thanks, Ajay. I think you've given us enough food for thought. We also will have to grapple with those difficult questions, making choices. I think business is all about making choices, and sometimes we do a pretty bad job of it. We want to do everything. Let me move to the panel discussion itself, and I'm going to start with Sandhya, who's on my left. My first question is, Sandhya, what made you get into this particular field? We understand that you are in the business of solar electric boats. So can you give us a little bit of insight into how you started and why did you pick this?
Okay, so my background is naval architecture, which means I studied how to build ships and boats. So that is exactly the reason why I went into the boat building and shipbuilding. In the pursuit of trying to build more efficient boats and ships, it was initially, it was always designed as a way to achieve efficiency was what is called as a prescribed way of innovation in ship design or shipbuilding. That is when the renewable energy started picking up maybe 10, 15 years back. At the time, it was not economical. The delta or the marginal cost of renewable was never justifying in application marine transport. But we tried our experiments in that sector. So why I stepped into this sector primarily is, one is because of my background, and two is to do something different in the space where it was only designed as an element only. So bring in renewable energy also into play, so that from a 1/3 drop in OPEX in terms of design, you can even achieve to 1/30 if you do renewable. And so that's what I thought we could do by entering into renewables and solar electric boats. Yeah. So that's what led me into entrepreneurship. Yeah.
So it looks as if what you're doing is, in a sense, you could almost say it is social entrepreneurship, because there is a larger, but what is your motivation? Is it primarily to do business, and is the social part secondary?
So just to my definition of social entrepreneurship is maybe slightly different in the sense that fundamentally every entrepreneurship should make money. So unless you make money, you are not going to sustain. So you are not going to, or you are dependent on somebody else to provide funding. Then you are an NGO, you are not an entrepreneur. So in my definition, a social entrepreneur is someone who is creating a product or service which is an overriding positive benefit. So which means like making a cigarette factory is entrepreneurship, but then it's not social entrepreneurship. So in my definition, that is social entrepreneurship. So what we are doing has obviously a lot of social benefit in terms of how we can eliminate the whole pollution in terms of air, water pollution, diesel and other uses, so that we address the 3% carbon emission, what is happening from marine transport. In that sense, I would say I'm a social entrepreneur, but not in the sense probably what many may think that it is also, it's not the primary is profit or primary is social. You should have both. It's not that either or.
So then let me put you on the spot and ask you, say, would you consider, building ships and boats running on a fossil fuel?
So in life and in every application, there is nothing called binary. You go from 100% fossil to zero. There exists no product or service which has zero carbon emission. Every product or service has carbon emission, directly, indirectly. So even if I make a 100% solar electric boat, there is always a carbon emission to make that solar panel, that battery, etc. The goal is reduce, reduce, reduce. So if I were to make a diesel boat or diesel ship, my diesel ferry should or boat should consume maybe 30% less, 50% less. It should bring that delta, a difference. If you do that and you're going in that direction, I'm on the right path.
Thanks, Sandit. I think that's a very interesting answer, and it also tells us a little bit about why he is successful. I think he's a very practical, pragmatic businessman. Entrepreneurs, by definition, need to be practical and can't be ideologues. My next question is to Lakshmi here. And Lakshmi, you are the co-founder and CEO of GoHuddle. So first, I'm not sure how many people know about GoHuddle, so maybe a quick word about what it does, what it is. And I understand that you interact with a lot of startups in GoHuddle. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with these startups? What have you learned about startups from GoHuddle?
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. So we collectively at GoHuddle mentor the startups. And it's not just a startup, but we focus on action-oriented, collaborative team sprints. It might sound complicated, but it is something we all regularly do, but doesn't realize what impact it might, cause. So for the success of a startup, we have found that there's one factor which decides it, and that is resilience. And while interacting with the founders of various startups, we have understood that the probability of success of any founder will depend on the number of times it starts, then fails, then again starts, and only then those startups will reach in a position wherein they can call themselves as an entrepreneur who has the probability to succeed. And we have also noted that majority of the startups are founded by people who doesn't have a background of doing business, but they'll have a brilliant idea, they'll have that conviction, they'll have that passion, and they are tech savvy, sir, and they'll even build their platforms and products. But when it comes to entering the market, knowing the market, managing their team, networking, and rest of the things, they get stuck. They face challenges. So being a startup founder must be able to face challenges and be able to sustain in diverse scenarios. And that is exactly what we at GoHuddle provide, because there shouldn't be any surprise in the future which should halt the development of a startup. And through action-oriented sprints, we will give those startup founders some problems. Usually the learning, we all know, will be mostly focusing on certificates or content or self-paced learning. But here, those startup founders will be given real-life scenarios, challenges, and they'll work on it as a team, and they'll come to a model, a solution, and this will help them sustain their journey, sir.
Thank you. And Suja, my next question is to you. So you come from a more corporate background, let's say. So is innovation, I've heard about this quite a bit. I've experienced a little bit of it since I used to work for a large company myself. Sometimes people think that innovation is an oxymoron in a big company. Now, is that true from your experience? And can you tell us a little bit about innovation in, say, Nissan?
Thank you, Mr. Padmagavan. Good evening, everyone. So, innovation in itself, we talk about innovation. In fact, one of the most common words that we all bandy about, we all have, in every corporate or even, startup, speak innovation, if you look at it, is one of the keywords that's used. But that being said, John F. Kennedy once remarked, I think this is the quote, he said, you build a roof, when it's shiny. Why he said that is, I kind of talk about it from the innovation point of view. Why he said that is, you start building something when everything is bright and clear, but you're building something when it's going to rain, that's protect you from rain. So when you talk about innovation, you're starting to work on something that down the road is going to help you. So if companies don't innovate, right, whether it is incremental, as bigger companies do, or like startups do, which are more agile and they come up with, great products like Apple did and changed the, phone and made a revolution, you don't survive, right? So what does that mean? In one way, it's about finding new ways to build products or services that are going to be beneficial to the users, provide better customer experience, and in the long run, be something that's going to be impactful. If it has to stay and is going to be sustainable, it has to be, something that is going to have an human impact. So in that way, when you look at innovation, every company, even though we talk about it a lot, big or small, we have to keep on innovating. Now you asked me about Nissan. I have moved on from Nissan. I work in a fintech now. Whether it is the current company organization I run, or whether it was Nissan, we do talk about innovation. In fact, when I was at Nissan, this whole digital hub that we created was to drive innovation. Why so? Because the world of automobile industry is changing. Cars have become software on wheels. Now in a fintech, we cater to banks. We help them with their core modernization. We help them with their digital transformation. Banks, traditional banks, there are bankers here, and I'm looking at Mr. Balagopal sir. So, but as he knows, if they don't innovate, at the end of the day, they can't keep up with what the customers want. So obviously they have to also keep on innovating. So whether any organization, big or small, even if it is probably used a lot, it is something that every organization has to do. In Nissan, we focused on innovation. In fact, this entire digital hub was created with an aim to help transform the current way of doing things in that large organization. And we were making technology, we were using technology as the enabler to drive that innovation. And what does that mean? We had to get all sorts of people who are proficient in emerging technologies to to drive that revolution, right? So for instance, Sandit here, what he's doing is innovation, right? But at the same time, he will continuously improve that to see, how he can scale up. Because at the end of the day, any innovation, it has to be sustainable and it has to have the ability to scale. Because otherwise, it is not going to be any use.
Thank you, Suja. My last panelist here, Ajay. Maybe you could, talk us through a little bit about this point you made about the choices, that you cannot be in, both boats, right? Also, since you have experience of not only building up your own company, but I believe working with a large multinational company, I'd like to put that question also to you. Is it true that large companies are almost incapable of innovation?
So quickly, let me address the first one, and then we'll come to the innovation part of it. So firstly, the good news is when you talk of being an entrepreneur and the qualities you need, most people feel you need to be born an entrepreneur. You don't need to be born an entrepreneur. Because each of these qualities and attributes can be developed. And what you need to be is to recognize what is it that you need and make sure if you don't have it, you develop it. If you don't have it, you include it such that it's part of your organization. So there could be somebody coming in with knowledge that I don't have, and that can work. The aspect that you spoke about, which is to do with innovation and the ability to innovate. Our medical device experience is absolutely clear. Innovations happened only in small companies. A lot of expenditure happened in large companies. But ultimately, because it was a very long lead time of development in the medtech space, the bulk of what succeeded was small companies took innovation to a certain stage from a perspective of market acceptance, and the large companies came and acquired it. Why is it that small companies are more innovative? Because you need to be nimble, you need to be creative, and you can't be saddled with processes and multiple levels that have to be convinced, etc. Because in small companies, they are driven by the passion and they can act. And you need to act. And you need to act fast because those ideas otherwise evaporate. And you should work in a small enough team to be able to interact. That's probably the reason while you need the monetary muscle to do innovation, those who have it are slightly less capable of handling it. So they acquire finally. And at least in our space, all the innovation has happened at small levels. And that is where the value is created. And beyond a certain stage, when an entrepreneur realizes that he can't take it any further, and the large company realizes that they need something like this which is relevant for them as a roof for the future, that is where things match and they get acquired, if that answers your question. So I think that's what it is. I have seen it all my life. Social, the theme that we are talking about, and a for-profit organization and innovation, whether all of this can coexist. That was your question, right? I'm very sorry I missed that. And the answer to that is a resounding yes. Because when you do socially responsible things, so let me put it like this. If you wake me up and say, and I'm talking of entrepreneurship, business, what is sustainable to me? What is the meaning of that word sustainable? That my company should last long. It's as simple as that. My for-profit organization should last for all time to come, which means it has to fuel itself. it has to generate that fuel. That's a given. What's the use of it being able to generate its own fuel if there is nothing left around me? That's not possible. If you're built on faulty values, you're going to fall. I keep saying that values, when we talk of commitment, honesty, integrity, these are fundamental. They are the foundation of a building. The superstructure is how you make it deliver. The superstructure gets rented, not the foundation. And the better you make the superstructure, the more rent you will get. But you make a fabulous superstructure and the foundation is not good enough. You know what's going to happen. So when you are a corporate citizen which is committed to these goals, and you practice them in every step that you take, I think there is already a meeting ground. But if you say you're running a commercial enterprise and profit's not your objective, I can't see it survive.
Thanks, Ajay. Back to you, Sandip. Can you give us a little bit of an idea about, just how big your company is in terms of employees and maybe revenues? And I'll tell you why I'm asking that question. If you are now, for example, growing rapidly and have achieved a certain size, is that having any effect on your ability to innovate?
So we have 125 direct employees and 50 subcontract or indirect employees. And we did about 15 crore revenue last March. We should do about 30 to 50 depending on our ability to get working capital, like from the banks. So that is a constraint I just mentioned. So we are still small in that sense for us to have any hindrance for innovation. So in my mind, innovation could have different levels. And one constraint I have faced over years is what level you can go depending on our availability of resources. So for example, when we started with very little money, so it was easier to innovate on design. It is easier. It's more like closer to, you do like a services and then innovate. As we generated some revenue internally, then you could do address on slightly more complex way of trying to build a system, electric propulsion, marine certification approval, which at the time was still first in the country. So that we could do. But the bigger challenge is, can you do something which without support in terms of what I define as a frontier technology, which you will not yield the economics right away. For example, in our application, can you build the whole ecosystem or technology around a fuel cell and make a marine transport application, which is not economical today? Because if you are talking of hydrogen fuel cell, the capex is high, the opex is also high, which is nothing to do with us, it's just the cost of hydrogen. It will change by volume, like maybe Adani, Reliance, IOC, all have told that green hydrogen will come down to $1 in 5 years, 7 years. Only then the whole economics will work. But it'll still take 3 to 5 years to build that system for us, for that 100-meter ship, cargo vessel. So there are still, I still think we are nimble enough to work on these major problems, and we address bigger and bigger problems depending on our ability to allocate resources, money and people, and to build the technology, right? So I still consider us as small enough to still have that nimbleness at the moment, yeah, if that is what you meant.
So generally people talk about innovation being done by small, nimble companies, startups, etc. That seems to be fairly well established now. But I've also heard that the opposite, that unless you have a certain size, and if you don't have, you cannot even begin to look at certain kinds of innovation. Is that true in your business?
She gave the example of Apple and the iPhone. They made it a time when they were already $1 billion company. So obviously some problems cannot be addressed without money. There's no doubt about it. And which is what I gave our example, that I can't even think of certain problems because I don't have the money. Right? I can't think of making a cargo vessel which is completely green today because the amount of money I need to put to build it and the time, 3 to 5 years on that problem, spending some next 50 million, how can I do that unless I find that kind of investor and that. So we are doing in steps. So we are going in this year 50 meter, next year 75, go to 100. Then, so that is a constraint we are facing. Somebody else can go directly to what I'm addressing today with that kind of money, provided they can assemble that kind of team within a large company. I don't think that is a constraint. It is just whether you will impose a lot of bureaucracy in that or the part of organization that you are unable to do. If you give them a free hand with the money and the resources, I don't think a big company can't do innovative stuff. That's what I think. And we hope to be one later.
Thank you. And Suja, so what I'm going to say next may be completely ill-informed because software and information technology is not my strong suit. But I was part of a discussion recently in which I heard this, and I thought I should ask somebody in the business. So apparently, the state of Kerala is considering taking on a leadership role in AI. It's just something that I heard. And somebody said, I don't even remember who it was, but it seemed to be a fairly well-informed person, but that it is a pipe dream. Because to do anything meaningful, you need a minimum $1 billion. So is that actually correct? And how does that act as a deterrent or, on innovation?
See, ideas and dreams should never be restrained. That's what or should never be limited, right? Because if you didn't have an idea of creating something that is, zero emission or, limited emission, right? Carbon, environment friendly boat, how would you even think about it? So the point is, Kerala investing in AI, why not, right? I will tell you, recently I had this conversation with someone and I was quite surprised, and I'm still trying to find more data around it. India, as you all know, is one of the leading suppliers of AI talent. When we think of AI talent, we immediately think of Bangalore. I heard from a credible source that after Bangalore, Cochin is one of the biggest hotspots for AI talent. Now, if you have something like that, why would you not build upon it, right? There should be no limitations to what a state or an organization or anything or any person should dream about, right? Or have a vision to do something. We may not have $1 billion, and that's, But the point is, what the state could do is work with our universities to build a curriculum, to create a pipeline of talent, so that more companies who want AI skills, like Nissan, my current company Zafin, because we all have analytics, right? We all need data science, we all need AI, ML, those kind of folks. Start creating and have a hub here of good talent who could work on it. And eventually, we also have a very robust startup ecosystem. There are a lot of entrepreneurs, who would have the necessary kind of environment, ecosystem, to start working on their AI-related entrepreneurial ventures, right? From there on, why can't Kerala have maybe a unicorn in the future, which is entirely built on AI? So the question is, I think it's always easy to call, it could be a pipe dream, but it's important to have a dream that is focused on skills and availability and talent that is going to do good for the state. And I think we are at the cusp of, we are already there in Industry 4.0. We are talking about Industry 5.0 because we already have ChatGPT and all of those things there. And what is Industry 5.0? It's about man working along with machines. And we need to start thinking of the next journey, right? So create people who have that kind of talent, work with universities to develop people with those set of skills. If it is AI, we already may be late, but it's great to know that we already have a good ecosystem here and start building it. That is, we don't know what is going to come out in the future.
So actually my concern is that while I completely agree that, we should be investing in future technologies, my concern is that say, for example, AI, something which is going to be a barrier? Is it something which is only for the chosen few and is going to be so expensive that, most people are going to be shut out? And the Googles and, all these big guys will basically corner all the, and you will not even get a chance to innovate. That's my question.
No, I don't think, I don't think there is a danger of, you have the Googles and the Facebooks and all of that, but I don't think we are referring to that, right? At the end of the day, look at the users. We are all using artificial intelligence in some form or the other. You have your smart watches, that tell you, whatever you want to know. You have your phones, you have your, what do you call, the Google, the pods, all of that, the Amazon Echo, all of that run on AI. And the common man also buys it these days, everybody. You go to, whichever industry, there's a lot of analytics and other kind of, technologies that are, enabling the entire customer experience that comes to you. These are all built on, when we say AI, we are not just thinking about robots. We are also thinking about a lot of other technologies that are part of it.
So you don't think that we're going to see these giant monopolies take over the world, and there will still be a chance for these startups and the little guys?
So we talked about innovation, right? Whether the big guys can do it. Sometimes the big guys are too big with bureaucratic processes and, too many, layers to be nimble. But how do they, for instance, all these traditional banks, right? How do they, at the end of the day, build that customer experience for their customers? They do it because they partner with people like us, fintechs. Right? Because we are agile, we are a much smaller organization. We bring the skill set, they bring the scale, and they bring the money. Right? Okay. So at the end of the day, yeah.
So India has always proved to be great in services, which means we can work for Google and others in terms of providing the resources. The more challenging is, can we make products? That we have not at that level, I would say. So regarding AI, what do you say? It is easier for us to do applications. But to build a new LLM or language models is very difficult. I think that needs this kind of resources you are saying. This is exactly what is happening in any industry. In our case, it would be, the difficulty is, can you make a new fuel cell? Can you make a new solar cell? Can you make a new battery cell chemistry? That is all $1 billion plus industry, which we are not doing as a country for sure. Maybe in some exceptional areas, but in the domains I know, we still are not putting in that level of technology. In the equivalent of AI would be the LLMs. Is anybody doing? That is, I would say.
Thanks, Andit. Lakshmi, a question to you. You have an organization, I understand, is it an organization or is it a platform, Corp Connect? So please tell us a little bit about what it is. And my understanding is it is not a giant organization. So there is still hope for us small people. Over to you.
Thank you so much, sir, for asking that question. So Corp Connect is a platform. It's a one-stop solution for cyber victims. Now, cyber victim is like one aspect whose pain will be understood by a person who becomes cyber victim. Majority of us sitting here think that cyber crime will happen to others. It's just a myth, or it's not going to happen to me. I'm technologically sound. It's not that. Today, before coming here, I got a distress call from a person who is like tech savvy, but he lost 44 lakh rupees. I don't know how many of you even get international calls and you attend video calls and then become a victim of sextortion, cyberbullying, harassment. So all these things, the victim panic, they get confused. They don't know what to do next. So we understood the problem, and it very well is in sync with the innovation and prosperity beyond profit, because we developed a platform, an application that is totally free for anybody to download, and when they become cyber victim, they can find cyber crime first responders like me nearby them, and they will connect them to the nearest cyber cell and even cyber psychologists, lawyers, and technical expert. So that is exactly what we are doing. And just like a Tamil proverb, I'm just translating it to you all. Headache and stomach pain, the pain will be understood by a person who will actually have it. So let none of us become a cyber victim, but please remember, we have developed an application and a platform to help the cyber victim, which is an ecosystem, a one-stop solution for them. Thank you.
So what was the investment in setting it up?
Actually, Sir told, in order for a startup to sustain, it must have something to make it sustainable, right? So we have a parent organization. It's ISEC, Information Sharing and Analysis Center, which is funded. So initially we thought to charge from people, but then we understood that already majority of our target customer will be the one who lost their money. So there's no sense charging from them. So our funding is mainly from our parent organization. That's Information Sharing and Analysis Center, which is a public-private partner with Government of India, and it's connected with Ministry of Defense and Ministry of Education, AICT, and the list just goes on. So we have got funding that way, sir.
So Ajay, I'm going to, before I go to the audience, one last question for you. Just referring to the questions I was directing at Sandit and Suja, looking at the medtech industry, our experience has been very different, that it is really the small guys who have been. But do you see, because of the way in which technology is moving, the fact that software is now becoming such a big part of any device, is there a danger that the same thing can happen, that, large chunks of, research, fields of endeavor, may be just shut out from the small companies? Is there a danger of that?
Are you referring to the medtech space particularly? So in the medtech space, I doubt. Because the characteristics of the medtech space is that unless you go through a very long process of validation of your technology, you can't adopt it. Once you adopt it and you are in sync with it and it starts working well in your hands, those who adopt it, the healthcare deliverers, there's an enormous resistance to change. Because if I'm getting good results with some technology, for me, you come and ask me to try out something else, I have to be very strongly convinced. And that conviction comes with long-term result presentation. So that change is not going to happen that quickly. The problem is not about innovation. The problem is about being able to survive in a market where you must have the ability to be resilient, and some of it has to do with capital. So I don't think technology will knock off people.
So I'm going to open up the floor for questions. Anybody in the audience would like to ask any questions, please just identify yourself, and then if you have a question directed to a specific panelist, please name the panelist whom it is directed to.
My question is to Ajit. Doesn't genetics play a role in entrepreneurship?
So what you're again talking about is, due to genetics, you have some qualities that came into you. And if you look at the qualities that you need to build, they are not really things which are, you can't, it's not that you become an entrepreneur because you're tall or you're short or, you have good eyesight. All these are cultivatable. And honestly speaking, it's not just about entrepreneurship, it's about the organization that you develop. Can everyone have all the qualities? The answer to that is no. An entrepreneur should not try to become a superhero. He only has to be mindful that you need all this, and if I don't have it, I have somebody who works with me who can bring it or has it in them. So to that extent, yes, it will be an issue of aptitude. It could be. I mean, if somebody is really not good at numbers, he's not good at numbers, and that is an aptitude issue. But if I have a partner who's excellent at numbers, and I know you need somebody with excellence in numbers, and be able to develop that. But the one thing I learned in my life is you have to have at least a peripheral knowledge of every aspect. Otherwise, it's very difficult to even choose the right people and be able to assess them when you start developing an organization. So you need at least a peripheral knowledge. You may not be capable of in-depth knowledge because that doesn't come to you naturally. So to that extent, I don't believe it's genetics. I think it's possible for everyone. And I think many of these things are possible for everyone. Naturally, some are natural at some things, some are not. That's what you need to figure out.
My question is like this. Innovation and entrepreneurship are very prone to failure. You must have tasted quite a few failures in your journey. Can you tell us about what you learned from such failures to succeed subsequently?
Absolutely. So that's a given. Failure is the biggest learner. So when you land up with obstacles, and all of you are aware of quality management systems, and you talk of corrective and preventive action. So when you land up with an obstacle, the first thing you have to think of, could I have prevented it? And if I have landed with it now, could I make sure it will never happen again? That the same thing should not happen again. And this learning happens if you have the courage to admit to yourself that I could have done better. And not blame a customer, blame an event, blame a circumstance, or blame somebody else. As long as you can do that, there is a learning in every failure. If you learn from the failure, there are three ways in which you can. If you land up with a serious problem, there are three ways in which you can tackle it. One is you sink, give up on it. The second is you do something so that its negative effect does not affect you adversely. Try and nullify it by some way. But those who have the courage and the motivation, what do? They treat it as an opportunity. And I can give examples, my real life examples that I have seen, where this was what seemed like such a serious problem that it suddenly struck. That why were we doing it like this for so long? Why can't we just do it differently? And that changed the way in which a business was done. But it landed with a problem. So failures, if you say, I will call it an obstacle, which means what is the failure? That you did not get the anticipated result. Or you did not anticipate this negative situation. First thing is to see, could I have prevented it? Can I prevent it tomorrow? And can there be an opportunity? And that is the best learner. There is no other way you can learn better than that.
So I heard something very interesting from a scientist recently when I went to some research lab. And he said, there is no such thing as a failed experiment. There are only experiments. You are trying to prove something, there is a result. The failure comes when you don't learn anything from the experiment.
My question is directed to Madam Lakshmi. See, you told about all these cases. You mentioned about a case where 44 lakhs rupees was lost. As a banker, we also come out with lot of ads not to share CVV, OTP. We do it in the print media, visual media, whatever you name it, everywhere. We send direct messages, Despite that, inside our bank also we feel so bad that so many people continue to, we are flooded with complaints about money being lost. What should a bank do more than this? We have tried everything, but even now, people keep on losing. But such basic things, for example, recently there was an issue with WhatsApp. A lot of people might have got international calls from unknown number. Many people have picked up that call. It was very simple to just disconnect the call or block that number, but picked up the call and got into trouble. What is your advice, what we as bankers we need to do?
So one thing, what I have realized is like whenever the police try to find the culprit, they end up finding an innocent farmer or somebody who doesn't even exist. So people, they just use their phone number and abandon it, and it might be connected to their bank, which they don't realize it. And the second thing is like they, the account that is like inactive for a long time, when it suddenly becomes active. In my case, I always get an alert. SBI is very good in that case. So we all get alert, but there are like certain selfie accounts. I think certain banks do provide that, because of which it becomes a bit difficult to track. So even though it is like something very comfortable for people, but still it is being misused. And another thing that I've noted is like what banks can do, sir, like police, I think when the financial fraud happens, the police has to contact the bank and freeze or hold the account of the culprit. Now, police will be sending a mail or try to contact the manager, and that response, that meantime is when the culprit will send it to multiple accounts. And again, the account balance will be zero. Even if you freeze the account or hold the account, culprit can find numerous accounts by then. So this is a bottleneck that we, when we had a discussion with the Deputy Commissioner of Police in Coimbatore, we found out this. So awareness is definitely there, but one more thing I've noted is like people, even if that awareness is there, still they fall victim to it, because that psychology is what the culprit is misusing here. So banks can conduct, we provide free awareness sessions. It's for the information of everyone. If you're interested to give free awareness session to your organization, your employees, and to your, customers, we'll offer you that. And that bottleneck alone, if some solution is there, so we are working on it. We want to get in touch with the banks. So if that can be solved, it will be a very big thing.
Indian Army and the country was depending upon imported tanks and guns. Now we are very good at screwdriver technology, and we are now manufacturing and exporting this, because this is our men are. He was talking about genetic this thing. We have some bright fellows among ordinary soldiers who come out with modifications, innovations, and things like that. So my question is that India is now innovating and getting into entrepreneurship mainly by exporting things. Look at your aircraft carrier we have come out with. It's a massive work achievement India had through innovation and entrepreneurship, because they have actually, we got first the Bofors gun, then we made it in India. We made the catapult on the track. Now we are going to export it. So I think we should encourage this kind of activity going around with the startups as well as technology interface. What is your view on that, sir?
Absolutely. And this success that you see, I guess all of us have some sport or the other that we are crazy about, and India generally is a cricket crazy country, may not be this part of the world. Many times you hear experts say that this is a game of the mind. And what has changed is the mindset. And what you're seeing is the result, where you're washing off maybe 50 years of what you could have done in over 10 years. So undoubtedly, you create an enabling environment, you make people aware that this needs to be done. Your very program here is an example of creating an environment where everyone thinks before he acts, where he knows that my action, I have to see whether it affects the society at large positively or not. So when minds change and it snowballs, these are the results. And that's exactly what should happen. And I'm glad it's happening in our country and certainly happening in Kerala state.
This is regarding the availability of AI technology to the common man. Actually, there was a question in which the answer was AI is there, watch is there, but it's not the case. It's now very well, everything is available in the net. For example, my son is an architect. When earlier he asked me my help for drafting and many other things, but now he's saying no, AI technology. Why should I? Why do I need your help? So even for drafting letters, email, quick, he will get the quick results and everything. Everything is available. I don't know why that question comes. Yeah, you can, if you want to write a letter, you first draft is the most difficult part for any officer, any CEO or MD or anybody. So first draft you can get it quickly from the AI technology. Even I used it a couple of times, but sometimes it goes too formal. But you have to do work on it. First draft is most difficult. So it's very commonly available right now. This is what I want to add. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we probably have overshot our time, and I'd like to thank all our panelists for a lively session. Thank you very much. And
thank you, Mr. Padma Kumar. We'll just be bringing across mementos. Thank you for being such a lively and active audience. We can continue with the networking after the session. Dinner is waiting for you. There's an excellent musical feast as well. And now we request Shri Ashish Nair, Vice President, RPG Group, to kindly come up on stage and hand over a memento to Mr. Ajay Pitre, who's a keynote speaker. A big hand, please. We had such awesome speakers today from such diverse fields.
May I request Sri Suresh Babu, past President of TMA, to kindly hand over the memento to Mr. Sandit Tandasheri. I would like to request Dr. Ayyappan, past President of TMA, to kindly hand over the memento to Ms. Suja Chandi. May I request Sri Ramnath, past President of TMA, to kindly hand over the memento to Ms. Lakshmi Mini.
And that brings us to the end of the technical session, the first technical session of TRIMA 2023. Thank you so much, Mr. Padma Kumar, Mr. Ajay Pitre, Mr. Sandit Tandasheri, Ms. Sujay Chandi and Ms. Lakshmi Mini. Thank you.